I am greatly honored to be welcoming Judge Barbie Scharf Zeldes as our speaker this Sisterhood Shabbat. Barbie and her husband, retired police sergeant Adam Zeldes, have been longtime members of Agudas Achim, where Judge Scharf Zeldes has served as our president. Currently, she is active in many organizations, including San Antonio Lighthouse for the Blind, the Jewish Federation of San Antonio, where she now serves as chair of its Endowment and Trust Committee, and the Rotary Club. She is also the first judge presiding in Probate Court Number 3 in Bexar County. Judge Scharf Zeldes and her husband are the parents of 2 sons. They have a daughter-in-law and a new baby grandson. We are proud to have her speak to us this morning. Thank you very much, Judge Scharf Zeldes. Where is she? Oh, there. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
You're okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shabbat shalom. All right, let's see if we can do this. I'm a little stealth, Judy. You got to watch out for me. All right, can y'all hear me okay? So in this week's Parshat era, God speaks to Moses, and God says, I'm aware of the Egyptians keeping the Israelites in bondage, and I remember the covenant I made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God instructs Moses to tell the Israelites, I'm Adonai, and I will deliver them from their bondage. God says, the Israelites will become my people, and I will be your God. I will take you to the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and it will be yours. So Moses shares this information with the Israelites, and they wouldn't listen. They didn't believe him. When Moses reports back to God on what happened, God tells Moses, go to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and tell him you got to let the Israelites leave. Moses says, if the Israelites aren't going to believe me, how am I going to get Pharaoh to listen to me? God says to Moses, you will have the role of God in speaking to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. Moses, you're going to repeat all that I've commanded you, and Aaron's going to speak with Pharaoh regarding the departure of the Israelites from Egypt. But there's God's disclaimer. Moses, you're going to step into my shoes, but I'm not going to make it easy for you. I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart so that I may make my signs and my marvels in the land of Egypt. In other words, everybody needs to know how powerful I am. I personally find that a little egotistical, but that's not the focus of this presentation. So God continues, when Pharaoh tells you to produce your marvel, you tell Aaron to take your rod and cast it down before Pharaoh. I'm going to then turn it into a serpent. So Moses and Aaron follow God's instructions, and sure enough, the rod is turned into a serpent. In response, Pharaoh summoned his sorcerers, and they were able to duplicate the event by creating serpents out of their own rods. Interestingly enough, this is followed by God's serpent swallowing the sorcerer's serpents. Suddenly, Pharaoh's heart stiffened, and he declines to release the Israelites. As you know, Moses makes several attempts to encourage Pharaoh to release the Israelites. He asks Pharaoh to let his people go worship God in the wilderness. When Moses is denied, he turns the Nile River into blood, killing all of the fish. Pharaoh's magician priests are able to do the same with their spells. And so again, Pharaoh's heart hardens, and he disregards Moses and Aaron's requests. The plagues continue. You know all these plagues: frogs, lice, wild animals, pestilence, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and the killing of the firstborn male. God keeps hardening Pharaoh's heart over and over again. If God had such power and such control, wouldn't it have been easier not to harden Pharaoh's heart? wouldn't it have made more sense for him to turn, him or her, I go both ways, to turn Pharaoh's heart in a way that was more supportive of the Israelites? Was the casting of each plague merely an effort to showcase God's signs and marvels? Or were the plagues a series of instructions to guide us to another path? Sometimes the lesson in the Torah is not what we should do, but maybe what we should not do. Pharaoh's resistance to Moses and Aaron, and essentially God's will, is presented as a deliberate act of closing his heart to the possibility of change. It can be a metaphor for human stubbornness and the refusal to listen to reason or accept new perspectives. The story of the hardened heart is a reminder to actively cultivate a receptive and open heart, not only in our spiritual practice, but also in our everyday lives. The world would be a very different place, would it not, if more people cultivated an open heart? What a coincidence that this Parsha falls on our Sisterhood Shabbat. For decades, the Agudas Achim Sisterhood has illustrated the lesson of cultivating an open heart, showing compassion and receptiveness in our everyday lives, in their everyday lives. It has championed the success of Agudas Achim by its very generous financial support of the Agudas Achim Kitchen, painting of the chapel, camp scholarships, Rosh Chodesh programs, the annual kosher barbecue, to name just a few collaborative efforts. Sisterhood takes its open heart beyond these very walls. It searches for those in need in the Jewish community, providing support to Sages, the Hebrew Free Loan Association, and the Torah Fund through Women's League. And Sisterhood illustrates compassion by helping the greater San Antonio community through its support of organizations such as the Battered Women's Food Pantry, Roy Moss Youth Alternatives, as well as summer donations of fans for those without air conditioning. When the Sisterhood confronts a hardened heart, maybe a stubborn human, there's not any stubborn humans in this congregation, I know, it is resilient and finds a way to continue its practice of assisting and uplifting others. With Tikkun Olam, we are tasked with repairing our world, not hamstringing it, but bringing about positive change. I'm reminded of that every day I walk into the chambers of my court. Rabbi's not here. I wanted to thank him. Rabbi Hodson was kind enough to put up 2 different mezuzahs in my chambers, so I get to be reminded of that every day. I've been gifted a mensch on the bench that sits prominently on my bench for everybody to see. Those who understand what a mensch is gets a kick out of it, and then there's a lot of people who are like, what's that stuffed animal doing on your bench, that stuffed guy? Because you know what? I am challenged by stubborn people every day. And there are those who make beautiful arguments. There are some people, attorneys, who make some arguments, and I think to myself, I can't believe that came out of her mouth or his mouth. And I have to bite my tongue and keep an open mind and keep an open heart. Even if I've read all the documents before that contested matter, and I might come out with a preconceived concept of where I'm going to go, I might not end up that way because I have to listen to what comes before me, which is what I would certainly encourage all of you to do, is to listen to what comes before you make a judgment, right? Keep an open heart. Also on my bench, in a conspicuous spot, is a quote written by Anne Frank. How wonderful it is that no one has to wait even a minute to start gradually changing the world. And that's for everybody to see, if they get close enough to the bench to see it. So how wonderful it is that Sisterhood has always had an open heart and continues to gradually change and support our world. May your heart always remain open. Shabbat Shalom.